Hi, everyone. And hi, Barbara. Thanks for being here with me. Today, we are talking about the topic is from goals to growth, turning resolutions into results. And we thought this was apropos because of the time of year. Everybody's transitioning from thinking of their holiday time and their New Year's resolutions. And we want to anchor those resolutions for new, better, different, big goals. We want to anchor what your vision is for the new year in your business into some strategic reality so that you can achieve your goals.
Yeah, and whether you're a person who, makes New Year's resolutions or, or not, the business cycle tends to run into, the calendar year to some degree in its healthy form of, completing a year cycle and so forth. And if you live in a environment that has four seasons, there's a cycle to the seasons. So however you associate that, it is certainly a time of a new beginning as a new year comes forward. And looking at that strategically with your leadership, your own growth, and what's happening in your business, taking a consideration of the external environment as well as the goals and vision for your particular company and then your role in that company. This is a good topic to dive into.
So, we want to start you off with a question just as you're watching Barbara and I in this live. Think for yourself about your business, whether you're a team member in the leadership team or the owner, CEO of your organization. From your perspective, please take a moment to think about the business, your role, the area of the business, what you know about it, what would really be helped or be great to up level in 2025 to get next level results. What do you know right now? And then as you listen to what Barbara and I kind of cover and discuss here, we want you to be applying it to what's going on in your role and your business. And sometimes when we're talking about strategic planning with different team members and stuff, people can be like, well, I don't know that, I don't have that information yet. You often have a lot more information than you realize. So, if you are not someone who's doing the strategic planning or owns the business in that way, I still want you to be empowered and think, well, what do I know? What were we working on before? What do I know has come onto my plate recently? And what do I think that this means that the business might need from me in 2025? Great. So Barbara, I was going to share our what I call the four buckets with everyone, but it really is a very strong anchor point um, for how to think about. And I show you on this graphic here. We think of this as the scoreboard that you align to with your team. This is where you and the team should be thinking together. And I'm going to make this image bigger than you and I for a second, Barbara. I'm just going to take up the whole screen for a second. So just want to quickly explain, in the top two buckets, you see the financial goals and the strategic goals. This is often where the CEO and leadership team live and think. And then below that, we see the two buckets of priority projects and internal improvements. And these buckets tend to be the area of expertise of your team members. The thing that we all have a part in thinking how these four buckets relate to one another, because often we start with defining our financial goals and our strategic goals. Strategic goals are anything new, big, or different for the year ahead. Then, when we have these defined, right, we want to then fill out the bottom buckets. Basically, the information in these top two buckets tells us what our priority projects are for the year. And then once we have those priority projects, it later informs us, well, what are the internal improvements we need as an organization in if we are going to have those projects be successful, if we are going to get those goals, if we're going to double the enrollment in our program, maybe that means we need to grow our coach team really fast in this first quarter of 2025, right? So these buckets relate to one another and basically inform you on what questions you might need to ask, where you might need greater clarity. Okay, so I'm going to minimize that and bring us back here, Barbara. Anything you want to add about this scoreboard and the 4 buckets?
Yeah, I think the scoreboard is so helpful to, build a habit of thinking, right? Because it's these 4 areas of thinking that are going to be super helpful to achieve outcomes. And, considering in the internal improvements, it's resource allocation, it's timing and talent and resources, is our software systems, organizational systems going to be able to support what we're going for now at the level we're going for it. And those priority projects steer the ship, right? You got your team in your boat, and those priority projects are what everybody's checking in on and aligning to ultimately. And so they need to be representing those ultimate goals and the strategy that you're doing to achieve those goals this year. And you can break this down into, you can start with the big vision, right? How does this speak for the larger vision of the company? And then use these same buckets in breaking down for the team and for your own role. For how we're moving forward in the year. So, coming back to these 4 areas of thinking continually help you navigate individually and as a team throughout the year.
Yeah, great. I love what you're adding there, Barbara, because we talked about how this call is about guiding you and how to take what might be a big vision or resolutions for the new year and really ground and anchor it. This thinking about it in this framework helps you to anchor it. And it's also the picture and the thinking that you want to come back to again and again throughout the year with your team as you are all making progress towards your goals and in the doing of priority projects and daily tasks, you want to pause from time to time to assess the results you're getting, to see if the plan moves forward as we planned, if anything needs to be adjusted. And when we're meeting as team to come together and make tough decisions, anchoring back to this picture and saying, well, why does this matter to the financial goals? How are we doing in relationship to our strategic goal? This will help us make decisions on pivots and changes and resource allocation, as you said, Barbara, all these things throughout the year by anchoring back to this picture and this way of thinking about what matters most to your business.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. Um, so also we talked a little bit about, Barbara, how we are going to cover today how your personal and business goals can align. And I wanted you to share a little bit about that because we talk about your V state in your role, right? Which is your future desired state. So when you think of yourself in your role, what is the next level of achievement you want to go for this year? Might be something you've already thought about given the time of year. If not, invite you to think about it now. You're a professional, you've achieved the level of success you've achieved up until now. Given what's going on in the business and your role, what would be the next level of performing, a next level of mastery of your role performance in the year ahead? If you were doing things to the next level, what might that look like in how you communicate with leadership team, with your CEO, with your teammates, with your cross-functional team? What might be different about how you approach, how you're thinking about yourself and your role and just the time on your calendar every single day? So, what's that next level of your professional evolution And can you tie it to the business you're currently working in? Make sense? Does that make sense, Barbara?
Well, I think that's again where these four buckets, if you anchor your thinking in these four buckets, it helps you have the confidence to do. I was thinking of, Heather, earlier today, you and I were on a call with the leaders in our leadership program, our leadership development program. And for example, in that, one of the leaders was sharing like bringing her ideas forward, right? In that creative state, just being like, I don't know if this is a good idea or not for us to act on, but here's what I'm thinking from the authority and position of my role. The responsibilities we carry in our roles has us focused in certain perspectives and certain ways within the organization. So allowing that alignment, as you were talking about earlier, it's just like, how do we bring our personal achievements and our business achievements in the company and role we're in today aligned, right? And so having the recognition of a growth mindset is like, what am I learning? What is coming forward? Allowing ourselves to operate in self leadership. Excuse me. Some of that is again, how do I hold my confidence? If I stay mindful of where the company is at, where the organization is at, and where we're striving to go. Like, what's that maximum impact that we're talking throughout the organization on a high level and, in that execution delivery level, right? So, if I can do that while thinking of, you know, what's the next step of, what I can contribute, what I'm learning, how am I seeing things different? And that was the example the leader that shared in our organization today, that in the development team program rather, that I was thinking about. She's just like, well, I took the risk and brought this idea forward, and it was actually, received as, wow, that's a great idea. Another time she might bring an idea forward and somebody else will say, wow, I really hear you, but that's not going to work because I have this thinking over here, this information I have over in finance today, like we don't have the funding or we're not ready to do that. And in self leadership, we can grow ourselves within the organization and our role with the ability to stay in kind of a neutral position, right? Because if we wait till we've figured it all out and we've decided it's going to work or not, that's not bringing a fresh idea forward anymore.
Yeah. So for a lot of leaders and team members listening, part of a resolution for your role for the new year might be something like, I am braver in meetings and I bring my ideas forward early and often,
Hmm.
right?
Right. That would be a good statement for that action. And that or something else. But if you can start thinking in that way, how does that apply to you? What are those things where you might be recognizing, oh, I kind of hold myself back there, and hopefully somebody else brings it up, right? Or expecting somebody else will, and be like, well, you're the one who's sitting in the marketing mindset right now that's, in this meeting, or remembering that we all have different, very valuable perspectives. And, it is taking that next forward movement when we're talking about getting maximum impact, or the other phrase we talked about was measurable growth. Okay. Those are the two that are in my mind. Like, okay, so what would be measurable growth, by the way? Are we talking about that? We want to grow. Okay, that's great. But what would be measurable? So the more we can think that through and have some, steps of milestones or recognition, that can help along the way um, to achieve. And when we chunk things down like that too, it's pretty known in theory, and I think in practice that it's those consistent step by steps that get us where we want to go in the bigger picture, right? So
Cons-
bringing it down and being consistent in the path.
Consistent actions. And in what you're talking about today, just to keep using it as an example, it is a great um, something for that. I think almost anyone in any role could look at, how are they showing up in meetings? And what would be a next level of preparing for meetings, participating in meetings, sharing your thinking in meetings. And if you can take a goal like that and think like, okay, so my goal is to be more prepared for meetings and then to share my ideas in meetings more than I have in the past and not be attached to the outcome, whether they love my idea and execute my idea. Winning for me is showing up prepared to the meeting, having thinking ready, sharing that thinking, and being brave and courageous to do that. And that every time that you do that, then as a team member, you can claim that as a win for yourself and acknowledge yourself. You're doing it, you're stepping forward, you're sharing your thinking more. That whether one idea gets executed or not, you're actually increasing your leadership. You're increasing the trust and the way that your team thinks about you through what you're demonstrating. You're creating safety for others to step up and share their thinking. So there's all kinds of positive ripple effects that can come from something simple like you deciding to consistently show up differently in your team meetings in the year ahead.
Yeah. And in thinking that way and thinking of kind of a associated relationship in that is if you're holding some authority in that team meeting and maybe working on your mentorship. So knowing that there could be growth opportunity for team members to bring their ideas forward, sooner and clearer and come more prepared and things like that. What could you do from your role? You might be deciding, actually, my growth is to listen. My growth is to ask more questions. My growth would be to pause and speak after instead of first. Like maybe you're really good at bringing your ideas forward. So then how do you help strengthen other people? So these questions are pretty grounded in, how that works for you from where you are. What's that next V state or the next, level for you to grow in? And those are skills also. And remembering those dynamics might be different for different people in that team meeting and recognizing what your part might be for growth and development. Maybe it's to empower others to speak because that's a strength you've already developed,
Yeah,
something like
and
that.
part of why we were talking about this, Barbara, was for kind of the synergy that can happen when your own personal development growth goals, your own personal development growth goals are aligned with what the business also needs.
Mhm.
Where so that you can really look at that and assess that if you consider that business picture and the four buckets we started with, given the financial and strategic goals, where might you and your team need to step it up in 2025? And what might that mean to your individual role performance? And does that tap into something that is also on a personal level, growing your confidence in sharing your voice, your confidence and strength in mentoring others and instead listening and not speaking, letting others talk first, right? So I want you to think about those, that what is the next level for you and where does that fit in what the business needs? And so what might you take on intentionally for this first quarter, the remainder of this first quarter of 2025, just thinking that far ahead? What is one thing you want to maybe try and apply?
Mhm.
And this is in a way to help ground you and take things that start as bigger ideas and ground them in your everyday approach.
Yeah. And how would you know that you're doing it?
Yeah, like
Right.
what does it actually look like when you're doing it? So we use the
Yeah.
example of meetings today just because everybody goes to meetings
Hmm.
and so it is often an environment that we want to have go better than it is.
Hmm.
So what would it look like? What would you be doing differently in that meeting? or if it's not about meetings, how would you be communicating differently with your CEO, with your leadership team, with your cross functional team, with the teammates you work with every single day? What would be different if you were performing at this next level, going for those goals that you would like? What would we see you doing differently? What might it sound like if Barbara and I were a fly on the wall? If we actually got to coach you and you were sharing a scenario that happened and it used to be this way in the past, and now I tried this and now it kind of went this way, what would that be from where you are now to where you want to go?
Right.
All right. So, well, I hope this was helpful as a way to think about taking resolutions and big goals and grounding them and making it applicable to you in the everyday. Please keep in mind that 4 buckets. And we also just want to invite you. We're Heather and Barbara, we're co-CEOs. We have one more CEO in our company, Tammy. We're a women-owned business and we support small businesses and their teams. And we also offer free discovery calls where you get one-on-one coaching support from Barbara, and you can see whether working with us would help you for the year ahead. So there will be a link below this video where you can sign yourself up for a discovery call with Barbara. And I hope you do it because you'll definitely get a lot out of it. And we both thank you for your time and attention today.
Yeah, so click that button and hop on a discovery call. Tell me about what you're thinking for this new year, for your own goals, and happy to support and explore that with you. Have a great day, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Thank
Take
you.
care.